Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Blue Carroll Education Meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Present.
Mr. Bratton,
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Present.
Mrs. Sherman,
Present.
Number 3, pledge allegiance led by Mr. President.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, approval of agenda. We do have a couple of minimums attached in our packet. 9C15 and 9F, and then 10 new business A. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Jim Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. Number 5, approve the minutes from the July 11th, 2022 regular meeting. I did not see anything.
Thing looked okay.
Yep. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Jim Sherman.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson.
Abstain.
Number 6, public participation. Do we have anybody sign up?
I think so.
One signed up for the day, Scott Green.
Good afternoon, guys. In Westerville today, they have this thing going on where they're teaching the educators about gender and all the craziness that some people have. It's called the gender uniform. And it goes through, I could show you this, if you guys don't mind. I'm hoping that you guys don't have any issue, anything like this where they're gonna teach the kids confusion about gender. And if there are teachers, I'm more than willing to educate the teachers on what a man and a woman are. But this is a big deal. We should be really talking about this in most of the schools. I'm embarrassed that we actually have to do this at the school board. But right now, all across the United States, there's schools that are teaching this gender confusion stuff in their classrooms. I haven't got a solid answer from you guys too much on what's being taught. I know some of the teachers are affirming this type of stuff because they got kids in the school district, and it should be squashed. If my kid can't wear a pro-Trump shirt to school because that's disruptive, but boy, wearing a dress to school is way more disruptive than a smart aleck t-shirt. So we need to squash the teachers that are encouraging this thing. You know, they should be educating. If every kid is not on par at their grade level, then they probably should be working a little bit harder. I'm hoping we're not teaching this. If I get confirmation that we're not teaching this stuff, it would be greatly appreciated. I want to bring the school's right up the street from us. I know they're a little different demographic than we are, but it doesn't take much to go down this crazy rabbit hole. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Jody, you're down.
You guys should have a handout from me, and we also have it up here on the board to see, so I put it out nice and big, so if you want to use your stuff.
Perfect, I forgot my readers.
Yes, we're all crossing to that point. So my presentation this evening, the curriculum and communication update, I've sort of chunked it out into 2 sections. The first part is to go over our state data and to let you see what our local report card is shaping into. And then next is share about some of the initiatives we have in place for the 22-23 school year and some of our new programs or courses. So before we start looking at our data, our 2022 spring data, I think Mr. Hahn's already shared some of that with you. You almost have to go back and look at how we did in 2021 to compare, because when the pandemic hit, we closed in 2020. That was the first year we did not do any state assessments. Kids were out of school closure, the instructional process was disrupted. So it sort of reset the scene of our data and gave us some new baseline data to start working from. So when we look at our 2022 data, it looks a lot different than it did way before the pandemic. So this chart that you see, whether you want to look on from a report from the Ohio Department of Education that does show the impact that COVID had on learning across the whole state and how all subgroups declined. The chart shows here English and math, and it compares it, all the subgroups we're looking at, we'll just compare for the sake of time, all students. And it does look at the data points of 17, 18, 18, 19, and 20, we had no test scores, and then in 2021 in English, you can see all subgroups drop as well as in math. So it did have a significant impact not being in school. The next slide, though, to make it relevant to our district, is I took that same little clip out of the chart we just saw, put our BC data in, and you can see we've always done really well. We were high performing and still are in a lot of ways. Is our English data report in 17, 18 in the 90s. We did drop in 20 because there was no testing, and same in math. So I'm going to lead you up to where we are at in 2022 to show the growth. And so we'll start with the spring data, the overall performance. Looking at our performance against the state, there's 20 areas that were tested in. We exceeded the state average in 20 out of 20 areas. We've always done that here at Bloom Carroll. We're just a district that's high performing. So that is, we're continuing that one in the spring of 2022. The next slide will show our spring data in 2022 against 2021 to show the growth. Like, did we have growth? So this chart shows the purple bar is showing spring of 2022 against 21 data. And you can see that in 20 areas, we did show growth in 15. So we are going in a direction that we want to see. Now there's a lot there, you can't break it down. The next slide sort of breaks it down by content area. That same slide you just saw, the same data, it actually chunks it out. There's 20 tested areas that the state assessments measure. Is it English, math, science, and social studies? So that same data you were looking at, just chunked it out so we can then start to break it down and see in English, we improved in 5 of 7 areas. It's a little bit smaller side. In math, we improved in 6 of 8. Science, and 3 out of the 3. In social studies, there's just 2 areas. It shows we just improved 1 out of 2, but this American government, we were just off by 1%. So overall, I mean, we did pretty well coming into the spring testing data season. Now this slide shows you what our new report card is going to look like. Now this snapshot is from what we call the Secure Data Center. It's not actually a public screenshot yet. It's in the process, but this is when we start to get it at the district level and start to process it. This is what it looks like. When I first started here at Blue Carroll about 12 years ago, we've had 3 report card styles since then. We started out where there was like 30 indicators and we were excellent or excellent with distinction. Then it went to letter grades, and now this will be the first year that we're getting stars. So we've transitioned into a star system. But the components are still the same. I listed them to the side. We're starting to get some of the data to be reported in and to see the outcome that the report card will look like. But I do want to focus on the gap closing because that's something that we've worked on as a district to really make sure we've closed the gap on all subgroups. So this takes us back, if you'll advance to the next slide, Mr. Hahn, to the chart that I just showed you at the beginning. It looks a little different. Here's all these subgroups. We're going to look at, this is the 2022 data, but what I did, I just took a snippet of the report because they're quite extensive. But this is the Bloom Carroll's gap closing reports for 2022, and it shows the subgroup areas that I showed you at the beginning, but the data for this year. And what this is, this chart is showing this goal column that I highlighted. These numbers here are set by the state. So all districts have to try to meet this goal for these subgroups. You see it's different for each group, and it's set by a formula that I couldn't explain. But that's the target that we try to hit every year. And this column here is showing how we did as a district. So if it's highlighted in green, that means we met that indicator, that mark. Sometimes we had a red bar, meaning we were below this goal. But we were above the goal in all subgroups in English, and we were above the goal mark in math, which is really good because we have not been in the past in all areas. And with our students with disabilities to meet these marks and stuff, we really have put some focus there. We're happy to see the outcomes of these reports as they're coming out. So that's sort of just like a snapshot of the data. You know, there's a lot there that we get with that, but just wanted you to see that in all groups we really have showed growth. So any questions like over the data?
The the gap closing report, I mean, it's a significant difference.
Yes.
As far as.
Yes.
Pretty good.
So we were really happy to see that. That's something, when you first get that first look at the percentages, and we said we really don't know what's under that and behind that, and reports like this start to let us see individually what each student and subgroup has done. So the next section is sort of the fun part, just highlighting some of the things that are on our initiatives for this year. And again, I'm just gonna try to hit the surface for time's sake. But one is, we have taken all of our curriculum maps and pacing guides that our teachers work from, we take the state standards and try to pace them out and make sure we're covering them all and doing them in a consistent order. So we have taken all the maps and revised them, put them into a template such as this. It's just a snapshot, pacing the standards out by quarter and then adding vocabulary and resources to it. So that's been a big initiative and one that's, I think, going to really help improve us and strengthen us instructionally. The next is our curriculum review process. So every year, we do this every year. This isn't new just to this year. We always want to go in and look at the curriculum we have in place and make sure that we are bringing the up-to-date resources to our teachers. So we do that by cycling through a certain content area each year. This year's review process will go through English Language Arts K-5 and Social Studies K-12. And the reason we don't do K-12 altogether, that's a really big conversation, and it's also a very expensive adoption. So we like to sort of chunk it out, have the conversations 2 different years, and we laid in social studies against that. So that'll be taking place this year as well. Next would be initiatives. So sometimes the initiatives that we put in place here in the district are initiatives not initiated actually by us, but more by the state. So the state put a bill into place, House Bill 583, that is the Dyslexia Law that is requiring districts to train teachers in dyslexia and in reading instruction. And so we are to get our teachers ready for that in the district. We are implementing letters training. It's a research-based, not a curriculum, it's a professional development course and study for teachers. And it's not a curriculum at all, it's just a training about the science of reading. So our teachers actually, we've talked to them, we've sent some information out here this week, and they're excited, some are excited about this. So I think it'll be a good PD for our teachers that goes along with this law requirement. Next is something I just had to slide in there because I just like this, we will be hosting once again the Professional Development Day, the Countywide Professional Development Day. So if you don't know what that is, in September on our PD Day, we will be hosting 4 other districts to come here to Bloom Carroll and have a day of professional learning together. And so I really like that. We've done this 7 years. We took a break during COVID, but we've hosted it every single year, and it's a lot that our technology team takes on. Our maintenance and then food services this year is going to actually be preparing food for all districts. So I like the fact that we sort of take the lead with the professional learning here in the county, and that's a good day.
So you do team with the people from the other districts? Is it
Yes,
like
we
all the
collaborate.
different people? Okay.
Yes, and work together. So we've got about 40-some sessions, but what I like about this day is it's not vendors coming in and sharing. We have teachers sharing sessions and best practices of what they're using in the classroom that's successful. So that's what's really made it. It's a day designed by teachers for teachers.
Hey Jody, real quick, in regards to the letters in House Bill 583, it says 18 hours of professional development. Is that for every teacher and admin across the board?
Not every. So it's chunked out. It's required for teachers grades K-3, and then intervention specialists 4-12.
Okay.
So
That's just, my question is do we have an allotment of PD 18 hours is a lot for one?
Yeah, so it's House Bill 436 that required it. House Bill 583 just that laid the screening for 1 year so the professional development could get done. And so ODE could put out tier 1 screeners because we may have to purchase a new screener potentially next spring or summer. But the law specifically addresses, in the Ohio Dyslexia Committee, addresses that 18 hours of professional development. Sorry, it doesn't say how many hours in the law. The law allows the committee to come up with the hours, and the committee came up with the 18 hours. And we have a plan with our PD this August. Again, at the countywide PD day, we have another PD day in March in the spring, And then we will also continue with some of that PD in August of '23, right before the kids come back, and that'll complete the 18 hours. We are only required to do grades K and 1 this year, but we really felt like we wanted to get it. Since we have to screen K to 3 in '23, '24, it makes more sense to do our K-3 teachers if they have to do a screener and analyze some of the results. So we're including K to 3 and then intervention specialists, grades 4 through 12.
This will be a nice time to do that, when it's gonna lay right up against our ELA, review K-5, that conversation will be taking place across all grade levels there. Then this is, some of our new courses and future programming opportunities. So new courses at the high school, we don't have as many as we had last year, but one, everyone's excited about sports officiating elective, that'll be really good, as well as world history honors courses, of course. And then we are partnering with the Fairfield County Workforce Development to create apprenticeship programs for seniors here in the district that might not be, they're not the career center, but are looking for a pathway. So we're working with them for students to get pre-apprenticed in carpentry, HVAC, and electrical paths. And then, of course, Intel's coming into Ohio and changing the landscape in many ways. And so Mr. Hahn has been collaborating with representatives from Intel along with other superintendents from school districts to prepare for that and to start creating pathways in STEM, CCP courses with higher ed to help prepare our students for future careers there with Intel or other industries such as that. So those are all exciting things that we're doing. Lastly is in terms of communication, so I have to do some of the communications here for the district as well. I don't know if you remember, we did the quality profile a while back. We were going to update it here this past year and decided to wait and do it this year. So this quality profile is about 12 pages of sort of like I'd say brag book in a sense. It highlights all of the essence of Bloom Carroll that we can share with families. It's connected to our report card, so people can click on that and see what Bloom Carroll's all about. I love that because it's more not just the percentages that you see in a report card. This is telling the story of who we are. So we'll be redoing this, as well as the video. We'll be connecting it to the quality profile story, the video version of the quality profile. And it was called the Bloom Carroll Experience. We did it long ago. I think that was Mr. Hahn's first year here, and Mr. Bratton starred in that. I believe, yes. I was going to have a clip, but I thought it would, take time. But yeah, we may be asking some of you to do that. But that's nice because we have teachers share a little bit, students, and some board members. So that's a nice little positive communication we'd like to put out and show and brag on our district. Lastly is I had, as with all of our initiatives, we work really hard, Mr. Hahn does, and the admin team to make sure we check ourselves back to our guiding principles and our academic plan to make sure that we're in sync and working in the direction that we set in place, and all arrows are going in the same direction to keep us strong and continue that excellence here at Bloom Carroll. So that's basically it. So do you have any questions?
Been busy.
Yeah.
There was lots of hats.
Little cakes.
I like how you said I did some of the communication.
Yeah, right.
Video guru.
But no, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, very well organized, appreciate it.
Okay, number 7, treasurer's recommendations and reports.
Okay, item A is approve the July financial statements for a total expense of $11,957,316.72, including $9.434 million in consortium expenses. First month of the fiscal year 23, obviously, July was. We started it off pretty well. Page 14 of your electronic packet with our the largest quarterly income tax collection in July, which encompasses April through June. Obviously, with the filing of the annual tax returns, it's the largest collection. As you can see from the executive summary, the yellow highlighted there, the gross total was up 23%. Obviously, we're not forecasting 23% increase in any collection anytime soon, so certainly that's much higher than we had forecasted. The current withholding there, you can see line 2 is up 7%, so a good start. Very vital that this continues to grow with some of the other revenue shortages that we've had. So on the expenditure side, we've got the replacement on the agenda here in a little bit, but our accounts payable position has been vacant for about a month and a half now, so we're getting by, but we really won't be able to compare the expenditures. We've pushed some things back in terms of the expenditures we would have made at this time last year that we've just fallen a little bit behind on. So once those catch up, I'll have a better update for you in August and September. One thing that's not on here, just because I've started to get some questions, and I don't want to jump the gun and get into this yet. Fairfield County's undergoing a three-year triennial update. Some of you probably already gotten your letter with your estimated new home value for tax purposes. We're a long way off from that being certified, so please just, if you have questions, ask me, but as soon as it's certified by the auditor, I promise you, the board will be the first to know, and we'll be able to forecast going forward. But don't want to jump the gun. Again, there's an appeal process, and there's a lot of things that can change between now and certification. So I just wanted to address that, if any of you have gotten questions or had questions when you got your letters. So other than that, any little over 8.246 million carryover. That's biggest revenue month is July and August, so that's a little overstated. But any questions on the July financials or the checks that were written during the month?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Rob Johnson.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Item B is approve the allocation and use of funds for federal grants received under the following for FY '23, 1 through 3 Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESSA, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, that's the ESSER funds, and American Rescue Plan, ARP. Number 2 and 3 were a direct result of the COVID pandemic. As with all of these federal grants, there are a lot of hoops to jump through, including this one, of submitting a public notice that you see on page 27 and publicly adopting the allocation and use of funds for these federal grants. I won't go through all of these, but certainly if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to convey them. The Title I, the first through IDEA, Early Childhood Special Education, those first 5 are annual grants that we receive every year in any normal year. Those are pretty much set in stone on how we use those funds. We are still receiving ESSER funds, Part 2. We are using those funds for summer programming, summer school. If you remember, we gave a stipend, an employee stipend in this past May, and we'll be doing the same thing next year, using those funds for that. Jody mentioned the letters program. We were able to fund the letters program under the ESSER grant, so at least that it was pretty expensive, so that at least allowed us to meet that mandate without our general fund. The American Rescue Plan ESSER is larger. It's round 3. It's not due to be spent until 24. So we are going to, the second round of stipends will be coming out of there. Our technology 1-to-1 replacement will be coming out of there. I'm hoping we don't have to do the high school asbestos abatement out of this fund as we've applied for the separate grant that we're still waiting to hear on. And then the American Rescue Plan IDEA that must be spent on school-age special education expenses is the final one there, and I think it was good that we were able to use those to fund the new intervention specialist at the elementary and also fund our additional psychologist services from the ESC. So 2 of those items on the wish list that fit nicely into the parameters of the ARP special education. So with that, any questions on the federal grants, the allocations, and the use of funds?
All sounds good to me.
I will second that.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson? Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Number 8, old business. A, approve the following policies presented 1 through 7.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Rob Johnson.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes. Number 9, superintendent's recommendations and reports.
Thank you. So, just a couple things here I wanted to keep you updated on. In terms of staffing, we do have a few open positions. We watch the enrollment closely through the summer. I'm gonna share that with you here in just a minute. There was a need, I felt, in fourth grade to go to 8 sections, 8 regular education sections in fourth grade. We got up over 27, and K to 4, it's tough, and I really felt that we needed to put that position in. It dropped us down to about 23 students per section in that grade. We've added about 6 or 7 positions in the district, so we'll just have to see, the impact. But as we grow, we're just gonna have to be able to balance our revenue with our expenditures, but I think we needed the position. In terms of staffing right now, we have a fourth grade position open, a part-time technology position that's 20 hours a week. We have an ESC transportation aide that we contract for the preschool routes that we need to fill. The ESC is working on that one. And then we also have a K to 2 aide position that Mrs. Pease is interviewing for as well. So I think, if I recall, I think we're at about 39 different transfers or new hires this summer. That's an awful lot for us. The 6 new positions start to create some dominoes and people move, and then you gotta fill those positions. So again, it's just been a busy spring and summer with hiring. In terms of enrollment, you can take a look here. The enrollment page in your packet is a little outdated. There was a mistake on it that said we only had, I think, 6 sections in 5th grade, and there was one other mistake on it. So kind of disregard that, and maybe look up here. Next month we'll have that enrollment report done. But every day from May on, I get an enrollment report. I see who's registered. I see who's withdrawn.
What page is it?
What's that?
What page is it?
This page is not in your packet, so I'm sorry, but the enrollment report that you have, I just kind of disregard. I can share this with you. I can provide a copy. But the number of new residents right now, we've got 75 new residents in 1st through 12th grade. We've had 41 withdrawals. There are 4 open enrollments that have been accepted. Those are employees' children that are bringing their children to school per the negotiated agreement. Retentions kind of impact, maybe 1st and 2nd grade a little bit, so that can offset your numbers a little bit. But where we are right now, or I'm sorry, as of August 4th, late last week, kindergarten 156. I think today we had 2 new kindergartners enroll, so we're at 158. I find it interesting, like our 163 in 1st grade right now. These are a little bit smaller. They are in line with our enrollment projections from cooperative strategies. We're like within 3 students. So I feel a little bit better having those enrollment projections and seeing where we're lining up right now. Then you can see the total number of sections per grade. In middle school 6, 7, and 8, you have a little bit more flexibility than you do in the K to 5. But you can see where our averages are right now. Our biggest class is our sophomore class, and then our freshman class is at 189 right now. We have a 190, 4th grade bumped up to 190, and that's where we added that position just this past week. So wanted to kind of share the enrollment report with you. Any questions about that? I think the net increase right now, this will continue to change. We have more appointments. We'll get some surprise withdrawals. But right now, we're at a net increase of 38 students, and we have about 22, 27. So that's where we're at as of late last week. In terms of our administrative team, just keep in mind, we still function in some ways as a small district. Our administrators don't work 12 months. Mr. Conrad works 12 months, Travis, myself. But our principals are back at work. They came back August 1st. The middle school and elementary principals, the assistant principals, counselors are starting to come back. So obviously we're getting ready for the school year. I held an administrative team meeting on August the 4th just to kind of go over expectations, talk about, again, aligning all of our work every day to our principles and our vision. And then, of course, a lot of details in there about things we need to do throughout the course of the year and things we're planning for in the future. On Wednesday this week, I'll meet with our district leadership team. That includes some of our classified supervisors like our maintenance, food service, transportation, All the administrative assistants and secretaries, all of our administrative team will meet on Wednesday at the elementary school for a meeting. Same thing, just try to get everybody on the same page, update them on any changes with procedures or district policies, protocol, those types of things. The district convocation is August 18th. That's the first day back for everybody. You are all welcome to attend. The breakfast will start at 7:30 at the elementary school cafeteria, and then I'll make some comments around about 8:15, introduce the new staff, that type of stuff. The turf project, it is complete. The turf itself is outstanding. There's a lot of tedious work to that project, but they got it done. It was a week late, just due to weather delays on other projects, a few delays on our project. Having limited employees for these subcontractors, is an issue. But we did have some minor issues on a Saturday last weekend. They cleaned, not this past weekend, the weekend before. Just in terms of cleanup, it didn't really meet our expectations, so I had to work with Field Turf and their subcontractors to get some items addressed. You may notice the aluminum gate out there took a hit from a skid steer and busted a pole, so they're covering that cost, and that's been ordered. The number of trips across the track, even though they put multiple layers, about 4 or 5 inches of turf down with a skid steer, carrying out all the old turf, bringing it over to the dumpsters. There was some minor damage to the track. That was already repaired on Monday morning and patched with polyurethane, which was the same material we had put in, so I wanted you to be aware of that as well. The drain grate, there was a grate that was busted that they had to fix and clean out the drains to the French drain along the fence. But overall, the turf is great. It's much softer, much safer for our student athletes and for our band members, and everybody is using it at this time. So, Intel meeting, we did have a representative go. Noah Kelly represented the district. I was unable to attend due to another meeting. But right now with Intel, honestly, it's very early in the planning stages. The one thing that we've been able to pick up on is that Intel may want to focus on middle school students more right now. When you look at the cycle, the projection of their plant in 2025, 26, 27, they're really targeting, Ohio's middle school students. There's no triangulation really at this time between ODE, Intel, and school districts. I think that needs to develop. I do believe that a lot of the first type of programming we're going to see will be through the Ohio Higher Ed with the College Credit Plus program and pathways at Ohio State and Ohio University and Cincinnati, where students can take a certain number of courses, have certifications or degree work done in some of those technology fields. But they made it clear that this plan is more manufacturing than it is IT, and they're going to focus on more like automation and computer engineering than just IT. So it's going to be definitely a manufacturing plant, and that's going to be their focus. We'll continue to stay, engaged and work with them and attend every meeting that they provide. In terms of other career development, Fairfield County Workforce Development down here on Coon Path Road in our district across from Wendy's at the old Developmental Disabilities Building. The Workforce Development Center is in there, and they're doing a great job of creating some flexible programs for schools around Fairfield County and providing, maybe the seniors that hit their senior year and like, man, reality's hitting me, I'm getting out of school soon, I didn't make the decision to go to the Career Center as a sophomore, I don't want to go to college, but I want a skilled trade, what do I do? These kids have an opportunity. I think we've identified about 8 to 12 students right now at the high school that are seniors that will be participating during the day in pre-apprenticeship programs, and that can turn into full-time, electrical, HVAC, phlebotomy. They have all different areas, but it's a good program. I'll be meeting with Lieutenant Governor John Husted tomorrow for a small roundtable discussion here in Fairfield County to discuss some issues just impacting education. That'll take place tomorrow at the Workforce Center. So there's a small group of us meeting with him. The School Safety Center, the American Rescue Plans Act set aside, billions of dollars, but Ohio has used some of that to provide school safety grants. We eventually did not, the first application, we got turned down. There were other school districts that got awarded. There were tons of schools that got turned down for the safety grant, but they just passed a $100 million bill that will direct those American Rescue Plan funds to the Ohio School Safety Center for grants, and all of our 4 buildings, and I'm counting our preschool, the ESC Learning Steps Preschool in Lithopolis will receive a $50,000 grant that we will make some additional security improvements. I won't go into details for security reasons, but we're going to make some additional security upgrades at all of our buildings next spring and summer as we get that grant money. So we just learned that that has been awarded. Communication, I'll be sending out a Bulldog Bulletin to all community members, regardless if they have students in the district or not, on August 24th, and that'll kind of highlight some of the financial status of the district, some things that we are working on instructionally, and also our program offerings with extracurriculars, co-curricular activities, and that'll go out right about the first day of school. That'll probably arrive in your mailbox, so kind of be on the lookout for that. So that's my update. Any questions about any of those items? No? Okay. All right, let's move on to 9B, students and programs. Amend the 22-23 cafeteria prices for adult meals as follows. Breakfast $1.60 and lunch $3.90. Travis, any?
Just this was required by the state. We were too low on our adult. They had run it through a formula, and we were too low on our adult lunches, so it was out of our control.
I should just cut the portions back. But so.
I'll make the motion.
I will second that. Motion made by Matt Bratton, second by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
All right, 9C, number 1, approve the substitute list number 1 for the August 2022 as submitted by the Fairfield County ESC. Number 2, approve the employment of Adriana Fiorilli as a high school social studies teacher on an initial sequence 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 3, approve the employment of Renee Davis as treasurer's assistant in accounts payable at 25 hours per week, 208 days per year on a 1-year limited contract at step 2 effective August 16th, 2022. Number 4, approve the voluntary transfer of Brandy Phillips from elementary aide to elementary library aide for grades K to 2, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 5, approve the employment of Heath Stevenson on a 2.5-hour per day high school lunchroom monitor on a 1-year limited contract at step 0, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 6, approve the employment of Teresa Reichelderfer as an 8-hour per day elementary school custodian on a 1-year limited contract at step 10, effective August 9th, 2022. Number 7, approve Mitchell Gangler as a summer substitute custodian effective July 1st, 2022. Number 8, approve the following classified substitute for the 22-23 school year, and that would be Duquesne Larison as a bus driver. Number 9, approve the following elementary school staff as after-school detention monitors for the 22-23 school year for Sarah Wooding, Aaron Freestat, and Cheryl Ardrey. Number 10, approve the following staff for Wednesday and Saturday schools and detention monitors at the high school for the 22-23 school year as presented A through G. Number 11, approve the following requests for unpaid leave or dock days for Denise Goff for an elementary school cook on August 17th, 2022, and for Bill Moore, a high school lunchroom monitor, September 1st and 2nd, 2022. Number 12, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 22-23 school year, and those would be your new building mentors, Thomas Krusek, Robin Cottle, Cindy Smith, and Laura Dobbins. Number 13, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for advanced placement instructors for the 22-23 school year as presented, A through G. Number 14, approve the following College Credit Plus instructors for the 22-23 school year as presented, A through E. Number 15, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 22-23 school year pending receipt of verifications and background checks. And that would be A through D, Jason Best, Chris Lucas, Bruce Olson, and from the addendum, Travis Stevenson for 9th grade football.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Jim Sherman.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson? Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
All right, 9D, contracts and agreements. Approve an agreement with Campbell Speech Services to provide speech and language services for students attending Eagle Wings Academy during the 22-23 school year. Number 2, approve an agreement with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio for educational services for the 22-23 school year. Those services specifically are for an alternative school placement.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jim Sherman, second by Rod Johnson.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
All right, nothing under 9E. Under 9F, number 1, accept the retirement resignation of Robin Grove, elementary school custodian with 14 years of service to the district, effective August 22nd, 2022. Number 2, accept the resignation of Molly Foster, elementary school K2 library aide with 6 years of service to the district, effective from your addendum and contingent upon board approval by the Walnut Township Local School Board. They are meeting right now, probably in the process of hiring her. Okay. And accept the resignation of Hayden Morris, part-time computer tech, effective immediately.
I'll second. Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Jimmy Johnson.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Thank you, sir. Number 10, new business. 10A, approve a resolution authorizing the employment of non-degree substitute teachers in accordance with HB 583 for the 2022-23 and 23-24 school years.
And that is our OUL program. House Bill 583 extended that where we can allow non-degreed individuals to be substitute teachers. I think it's good that we keep that in our hip pocket. We're gonna work with OUL again to find a few people that can work at our elementary schools, that are in their education program, work at the middle school and high school, that are future teachers. Honestly, if there was somebody that I knew met all the guidelines in terms of moral, ethical character, and they were not a junior or senior, and they wanted to work, maybe a 20-year-old that, wanted to work, with kindergarten through 3rd or 4th grade, I would look at that individual on a case-by-case basis, so that's what that resolution will provide us with, that flexibility. I want to have it there in case we need it.
Good deal.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Matt Bratton, second by Jim Sherman.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes. All right, moving on to 11A, Board of Education agent updates. Number 1, facility management.
Yeah, biggest thing was getting the turf done and everything. Sean gave us the update on that. That was the biggest concern right now.
The press box, I think we're all getting those updates and
Yeah, the Athletic Boosters is meeting. You guys have seen the guidance from our legal counsel. That's the second firm that has given us very similar guidance. So they know what the options are, and the ball's in their court, and when they make a decision, I think we'll know where we need to go with it. So,
Number 2, personnel and labor management.
Hiring a bunch of new people, right?
Number 3, OSBA representatives.
Nope. Yeah, we'll just start getting our November meeting, probably invites here before too long.
They should be sending out some information soon on the annual business meeting for November and that stuff. I haven't received it yet. Have you seen anything? No.
Number 4, policy.
Should,
Good,
just approved the last.
yeah,
That was the last reading, so what?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. We should be getting a new,
BDUs?
yeah, soon.
Okay.
They've been running a little bit behind on that, so I don't know. End of August probably.
All right.
Five, safety, health, and wellness.
Nothing new, just so you guys know, in case you get questions, in terms of safety, health, and wellness, I've talked to the nurses. You know, COVID doesn't ever seem to really go away. So, you know, you may get questions, how is the school district handling it? And what the Ohio Department of Health continues to forget is that school districts cannot separate people based upon vaccination status, okay? And all their guidance talks about if you're, you know, COVID positive, and if you've been vaccinated or unvaccinated, you handle it this way. Bottom line for our school district, nobody is required by any Ohio Department of Health order or district policy that they have to disclose that they have COVID. You don't have to report to the school district, we don't have to report to the Fairfield Department of Health. If you're sick, if you have COVID or flu-like symptoms, or positive flu test or COVID test, you need to stay home until you're better. When you're better and you're fever-free, you need to come back to school or to work. Health officials will recommend individuals wear a mask or don't wear a mask based upon vaccination status. We can't ask that question. We're not policing that. If somebody wants to put a mask on, they can put a mask on. If they don't want to, they don't have to. That's where I'm at. If the board wants us to do something different, let me know. But that's been the guidance I've given our nurses and our administrators. So it's the way we ended the year under, we ran under those guidelines the entire school year last year, pretty much. And I don't see why we should get worked up right now and do something different. So,
What's the absent policy if they?
yeah, they need a doctor's, if they say, you know, sometimes people say, you know, we're close contact, we're gonna be missing the next so many days. Well, you know, a doctor will sign off on that. If you, just like any illness, if you have a doctor's note, if the health department wants to verify that, you just send in your doctor's note like you would for any other extended absence, so, okay.
Number 6, finance. B, upcoming PTO booster Board of Education meetings. August 16th, new teacher orientation. August 18th, 19th, 22nd is teacher PD day. August 23rd, teacher work day. August 24th, first day of schools, grades 1 through 12. August 24th through the 29th, kindergarten assessment days. August 30th and 31st, kindergarten staggered start days. September 5th of 2022, Labor Day, no school. September 12th, Board of Education regular meeting at 6 p.m., Bloom Carroll Middle School Media Center. September 12th, athletic booster at 7 p.m., Bloom Carroll Middle School cafeteria. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. 6:48.